Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. In times of Corona, this is Jaap van der Meer, Director of TAUS. We're so happy that you're joining us today in these difficult days. Yes, this has changed the world so fundamentally and so suddenly. At the TAUS, in the TAUS team, we started working from home 2 weeks ago already. And but we're meeting almost every day with the 22 people divided over 2 offices in Amsterdam and Thessaloniki. And early last week we said, what can we do? It's so strange now. We can sit back and wait until this crisis is over, or we do something more proactive, more constructive. So we said one idea is to do a webinar, as we do more often, and just get people to speak to each other. We're all eager to connect and exchange some experience, some impressions that are relevant to us in this industry. So that's why we're here, and we have around 460 people joining, which I think is a good sign that people are indeed eager to connect and talk to each other. We had some other ideas as well, and we'll come to talk about this later in this webinar. But I'd like to first introduce you to my co-host, Andrew Jocelyn, who is based in Paris. And by the way, I'm in a beautiful village, and we have great weather today here, just north of Amsterdam. So I'm one of the lucky ones, I guess. We're saying here every day, just imagine if you're in sort of an apartment, a flat in the middle of Paris, and you're not allowed to go out of the house. How's that, Andrew, for you? Because you are there in Paris, in the heart of the city.
I am indeed, yes. Not a few meters away from the Place de la République. Listen, Paris is extraordinary because the weather's beautiful today. The streets are completely empty, so it looks like an abandoned movie set from a Woody Allen film, perhaps. Nobody around, no bikes, cars, or anything. The only things that are open to people who are allowed to go out for their, one or two things are shops, obviously, as well as the news agents. Very interestingly, they're considered to be a necessary public service, even though probably most people get their information, obviously, from the internet. The good side of this seems to be that there are fewer road accidents because nobody's out there, which means emergency services are free to help those who really need it, connected with COVID-19. But we have just heard that we can only go out once a week from now on, and we have to wash our shoes even when we come back home. So the instructions for sort of living through this are getting harder and harder. But luckily we have you guys all over the world here listening in, so it's going to be a good time to hear more stories.
So Andrew, your trick of buying a baguette at the bakery and walking down the back streets of Paris is not working anymore now.
Probably won't from tomorrow. No, I think we're expecting a message. I used to get a baguette, and if you walk with a baguette, it looks as if you've done some shopping, so you can get in another half an hour's walk. But no, it's closing down. But let's hope not for long.
C'est la guerre. Yeah.
Voila.
Thanks, Andrew.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, that was your picture. So before we introduce the other speakers, the industry leaders, just want to share the agenda for today with you after the conversation, and really only at the end in the last 10-15 minutes. We'll touch on a couple of initiatives that are already taken in the industry. One by TAUS, the Corona Crisis Corpus. That's a good. My colleague will say a few words about that. There is a COVID-19 translation group being formed, and Paco Guzman, one of our speakers from Facebook, will say a few words about that. And we want to take this opportunity to update you on the postponed TAUS events. So that's the agenda for today. And the speakers are these people here. So I'd like to ask each one of you to describe very briefly your circumstances, your environment, and we'll just go from the left to top and follow the list there. So John, CEO at Lionbridge, I think everybody knows you. How are you doing?
Hey, Jaap. Hey, everybody. Fine, thank you. I find this very odd. I now have gotten very acclimated to doing video calls. So as we talked about, the preserved bandwidth, we're on audio only. So I'm so used to seeing everybody, which has actually been one of the nice things that's come out of this. I am in the Lionbridge Command Central in Montclair, New Jersey, which is 12 miles west of Manhattan. Which seems very, very far away with, kind of ground zero for Corona now in the US or COVID-19. And my house is, I think, probably fairly typical of many. I am holed up, which seems now for 12 or 14 hours a day in my home office. My son, who lives in New York City and works for PwC, is locked up somewhere, and he seems to be working almost as much as I am. My wife's got her own business. She's somewhere else in the house doing her thing. And my son's girlfriend is a true hero, a teacher in New York City, who is conducting somewhere in my house right now online classes for third graders. And every once in a while, I kind of walk by and listen, and just we have an easy job, I will say that. So lots happening in my little neck of the woods, but fortunately for us, all safe and a beautiful day here as well.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, John. And then Marco, in the Italy, a country that has taken the most severe hits, I think, so far. How are you doing in the capital city of Italy?
Thank you, Jaap. Hello to everybody. I'm going well, and busy, worried, but healthy. And yes, I'm working from home today. And I'm based in Rome, Italy, and we are in full lockdown. What it means that after you close the schools, then you start closing the shops, and then after that you start shutting down everything else, the factories, and every non-essential business. So the offices are all closed, mandatory, and the only things that are open are the supermarkets. Water, electricity, and some positive things that came out from this is that translation was added into the essential services. It means that they recognized the work that we do for the food chain. And so basically translation services in Italy are one of the few things that can technically operate. So our team is all working from remote. We have no one in the office, but we are allowed to move in the city to go to the office in case we need. So I think my contribution today, I think I can, so Italy has been affected after China, and now unfortunately it's the biggest number of dead people. So we're about 10 days or 2 weeks before many others. So I can kind of see the future for the others, but just for the next 10 days. Okay, so that's the contribution I can give to this webinar.
Yeah, and that's not a good future then. Yeah, and sorry, I forgot to say, no, I think most people know Marco is the CEO of Translated and the makers of MateCat. So good, thanks Marco, we'll come back to you of course. Bert van der Meer will join us a little later. I think I mentioned that already, so we skip him for now, but Paco, where are you? How are you doing?
Hi, thank you. So I'm Paco Guzman. I'm a manager at Facebook AI, and my team deals with a lot of translation. I'm right now sitting in Menlo Park at home. It's a beautiful day in California. Right now, we are still allowed to go out and do a little bit of exercise, walking outside. So I'm hoping to keep that as part of my daily routine while it lasts. I'm sitting in the middle of my living room / dining room. I don't have a home office, so I have a little desk in the middle that I'm using in a shared space with my wife and my kid, who's staying at home now, school from home.
Yeah.
So you can imagine sometimes it's a little bit chaotic in the middle of the day. But so far, so good. I think we are slowly adapting to this new lifestyle. I think it's gonna take a while for us to get to where we were.
Yeah.
But I'm optimistic.
Good. Yeah.
Good.
We have to be optimistic, and you're in the heart of Silicon Valley where people are always optimistic, right? JP, a little further to the south in San Diego, I guess, today.
Yes,
Describe your
yes,
environment. Huh?
yes, indeed. I am in San Diego, so just down the coast from Paco, closer to the Mexico border for myself personally. We at Systrend did also institute a full remote work policy about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. So all of our employees are working from home. We already had quite a bit of capability for work from home, but it's still quite a transition for people to not see each other on a daily basis in the office. So we're trying to do a lot of video meetings throughout the week to keep people connected as if they were next to each other. Personally, it is also here a beautiful day, although, with the lockdown restrictions, we're not supposed to be outdoors unless necessary. So a little difficult to see the sunshine and not be able to go outdoors. And definitely it's an adjustment. My teenage son is playing video games nonstop, which I think he really loves. The fact that he's on spring break playing video games nonstop,
Yeah.
while my 2.5-year-old baby girl is trying to be my assistant and comes up and takes over my typing from occasion and interrupts my meetings, which is always nice, fun little interruption from her. But yeah, it's definitely a new reality. We definitely want to slow the spread of this virus as much as possible and keep everyone safe and healthy so that we can definitely move ahead all together in a better way.
Yeah. Thanks, JP. We'll see if we speak to your daughter later in this webinar. Chris, how are you for north now in the Seattle area?
Yeah, up north, same
worst
time
hit.
zone.
Yeah.
Same time zone as the previous two speakers.
Yeah.
So up north here, the weather is Seattle-like. We are in our third week of working from home, mandatory for Microsoft employees. Earlier than it became mandatory for all employees in the state. Except for people who run data centers or need to do essential services with physical presence. But Microsoft employees, we have been used to doing more or less essential work from home all this time and are pretty well equipped here in terms of the connectivity. Some of my team members who live in larger apartment complexes, they have really exhausted the internet capacity of their connection. So some of them use their cell network, which is surprisingly robust, more robust than some of the cable infrastructure that exists. But most of my team members have been successful lobbying their internet service provider to increase the capacity. So now it's good. We can have really good conversations. What I noticed, I don't know, I'm curious whether anybody else noticed that too, that having all of our meetings and conference calls in calls rather than in physical meeting, in my impression, had the effect of leveling the hierarchy a bit. I don't know exactly why that is, but regardless of your level in the organization, you have a chance to talk, and there is less interruption of people who consider themselves privileged, which I thought was a nice side effect. We're all just a little rectangle on the screen. I work in my home office, which I'm lucky to have. When the door is closed, the kids know that they shouldn't interrupt. So in that sense, it's easy. It's easy for me to handle.
Thanks, Chris, for joining us. That's great. Bob, now we move to London, west of London, right?
Yes, yeah, thank you. So I'm based in Gerrards Cross, which is a small town, maybe 20 miles northwest of London. Again, it's a beautiful day here. I'm in a very fortunate position in that our regular office is attached to my house, so home working is something quite normal for me. I haven't changed at all, except the office today is completely empty, as opposed to being a hub of activity. So the UK, I guess,
for yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. The UK, I guess, has taken a slightly more relaxed approach than many of the other countries in Europe, at least. But I think that's changing quickly. We've been in lockdown for the whole of this week. As a company, we have had all our staff working from home for the last 10 days or so. But I feel positive. Overall, I feel positive that I think in the localization industry, we are fairly accustomed to working remotely. And I feel that as a core function of many companies, although there will be cuts, I'm sure there will be cuts of varying sizes depending on the industry. I think we will bounce back.
Yeah, well, we'll get back to that question, what the impacts are on our industry, if we can sort of look ahead a little bit. But thanks everybody for the introduction. So in general, we have good weather around the world, which is kind of strange while this terrible virus is spreading, but that's the reality. So we'd like to then zoom in on a few questions a little further. But before we get to that, there's a poll for the audience, and we'd like everybody to think along with us. So if you can take a moment to respond to this question: what is the impact of the Corona crisis in your region and on your organization? For the speakers, we'll see the results of this poll on the screen any moment, I guess. But we'd like to ask this question of the panelists as well, to comment on that just in the next round. What do you think? What is the impact more specifically of this crisis on your organization? Do you see any sort of negative or positive? I mean, Chris already mentioned something interesting, which I think is a positive sign. But JP, what is your impression? What is your thought on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we can always find good silver linings, and I think there will be several to this. Good hygiene being one of them, and that will, help the world in general. So definitely working from home as well. I think it's good for people to be productive on the go, because I really do believe in the work-life balance in general, and always promote that with my staff, and I think that it makes a good case for being able to be productive while not in the office environment. But beyond that, I think for our industry, and specifically what we do at Systran as automated translation providers solutions, the ability to communicate multilingually, across the globe, to have secure communications for your employees is just of more focus and importance, I think, to the world in general now, and it will be afterwards, because people see that we are definitely globally interconnected. I think in the US that impact will be felt a little bit more strongly than it was before, being that the US is usually sort of on the sidelines of that thinking. So definitely looking forward to coming out ahead of this with really positive results, both soft and hard results for everybody.
Yeah, so that's somebody else already mentioned it in the round of introductions. Our industry is quite used as language workers to work sort of all across the globe, and very often from home. So you don't see that much of a negative impact there, right?
Yeah, not for our business. Our business being tech focused, our employees are able to do their work remotely. Coding and all of that. As Chris mentioned, sometimes it's the internet connection at home that's the problem, and not necessarily the resources on the cloud side. But certainly, we're definitely able to run our operations, and we had our business continuity plans for crises, but definitely for customers, there's different industries are being affected in different ways, and so we do expect, the impact on the customer side in certain industries to be more heavy than in other, industries. So it definitely will be I think an industry by industry, case by case basis.
Yeah. So, by the way, Daatse, do we need to do something to show the results of the poll? Or is
I think they should already be visible on the screen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't see it, but
I can see it.
Can you read?
Yeah,
all
I
right.
can see it.
Daatse, can you read the results?
Yeah, so most of attendees said that their main focus was to keep the business running, which seems understandable, right, in the current times with the uncertainty in the air. Then for many of them, the focus was also to keep the customers happy.
Yeah.
To contribute to a good cause in a translation-related way, as we also have seen on LinkedIn, several companies taking initiatives, contributing to helping those on the front line to improve the situation. And also, well, for many of the attendees, it's also important to making sure that the suppliers or the employees are safe, as we also heard from the panelists that they have already taken the measures to make sure everybody can work from home. So that's the situation right now.
Thank you. Now,
could I ask a question there, Jaap, please?
Yeah.
Quickly.
Yes, Andrew.
I wondered, taking this idea of taking care of your suppliers, your translator network, for example, from a company, I was wondering if Marco could tell us a little bit more, since you mentioned the fact that in Italy, you're in a sort of frontline situation, if I understand it right. How is the actual work or the demand or the relationship between demand and the environment working for you now, Marco?
First, I have to say, so all the employees are safe. I think you need to understand the situation before I mention what's happening. So all the employees are safe, but many have relatives and friends that are affected or hospitalized with the disease, okay? Some of the companies here locally lost 95% of their cash flows. And the average company in Europe has about 21 days of cash to survive.
Right.
So there is many companies around after 2 weeks of full lockdown. They're firing about 30% of the workforce. Fortunately, not many, but there are some that are doing this. And so there are many translators that are calling us saying that they need work, okay? Because they are not like a company. They don't get credit. They cannot pay their provider later. Nobody will get credit for buying food. And so some translators are not receiving enough work. Some other don't keep up with the volumes because they receive actually more work. So it really depends on the customer base that you have. Some customer bases maybe lost a lot of revenue, but they need to communicate. And think about travel industry. They're doing an impressive effort in communicating. And some other shut down their factories. So there is no volume coming from them. So personally, so I translated, so we're actually receiving the last month 150% of the volume that we normally receive. And so that was really the challenge that we had to manage. And so there was an incredible effort from the team. And if any one of the team is listening, I want to thank them for everything they're doing. And so we basically went to 24/7 in modality and working to serve the high demand. Now, the other problem connected to that is that there is many customers that do not have the cash to pay. And so you will see that the cashing of your payments may be delayed for some other customers. So it's that is the overall situation. And I think is in our case. So what we did, we tried to help. So we increased the salaries to the people that are working so hard. We basically provided to our professional translators free technology to as much as we could, and to some of the people that have been working overnight, because when you have a crisis, time zone unfortunately do not help. And so we had to ask many translators to work at night in 3 shifts. And so we basically doubled the pay for those translators. So we've been adding many measures and to support the people that are doing this effort. Unfortunately, I mean, some of the companies I think are reducing the salaries of firing people. And so when we started our plan, we basically realized it quickly that was the trend. So we set 2 goals. So number 1, that we don't want anyone in the team to go in intensive care. And number 2, we don't want any job lost. And I think that taking just one of the 2 goals, it's relatively easy. But doing the 2 I think is the hard part. And for now, we're going pretty well. And I think I'm happy, and I mean the team has done an incredible job in doing that. So I'm positive for the future, but I want to share that when the lockdown persists over the weeks, things don't get too easy.
Yeah. Wow.
Right. Thank you very much. Any reactions to that? That's very interesting. From
how's it for you, John? John, you're the biggest employer, I think, on the translation supply side here in the panel. How is it for you?
Well, it's been a very interesting few months. So we've been at this for some time. We've got a relatively large operation in China. So on January 22nd or 23rd, we mobilized, and we have spent a tremendous amount of time and effort of effectively moving 6,700 people to a virtual state. We kind of kicked into our business continuity planning early, and we've got lots of stories, similar to some that we just heard. So we have, by and large, taken people in 27, 28 countries and got them in a virtual state, and we have a complicated business. We have a lot of secure labs that we do work in. We work on a lot of confidential information for transcription, annotation, video games. We do a lot of life sciences work. And so it's also interesting because, I feel like I have a real-time view of what's happening around the world, industry by industry, vertical by vertical. So I could take you through, and we don't have enough time, but I've got literally hundreds of very fascinating stories like what we're seeing, and and I'll give you just some highlights. So some counterintuitive things, right? Luxury brands booming. Obviously, hospitality and leisure under siege, lots of crisis communications going out. But there, I think we haven't really seen the impact yet. I think we're getting a lot of work. We're very busy. I will say this, I think, across the language industry, and I think because we were early and ready, and where size sometimes has its advantages, is we have picked up a lot of work in the last 7 or 8 business days from new customers or customers that hadn't ordered from us in a while. And so, we know that there are some other companies that have not been able to be as nimble on the business continuity side and are not producing and delivering in their normal capacity. So I think that's something across the industry we'll have to watch. We were also staying very closely connected to, as we regard our community of translators. I sent a note out The day before yesterday is 60,000, and there's multiple communications that we continue to have across the team, et cetera. And I would just say this, that, you know, and got a lot of interesting notes back from around the world, many in Italy of translators as well, and very deep personal stories about what's happening for them. There's definitely a thirst for work, as you would imagine, across the world. I think, you know, many people are very worried about the economic outlook. You know, I don't know what the future will hold, but I think anytime you see big seismic shifts, history tells us that, you know, when the dust settles, and I believe, you know, very fervently that the sun will come up again, and when all this goes away. But I think it'll be a changed landscape. And you'll see a different shape to the business. I think you'll see, and not to get too far ahead, Jaap, because I know I want to cover it, but I have some ideas and we have views about that. But I would also just add to the audience, one of the very interesting things is, you know, as I said to our chief people officer yesterday, we've been so focused on business continuity, delivering for our customers, never being late on projects, that, you know, I now have shifted and I'm really worried about our people. And as you all know, we've talked about today, is, you know, work at home, work at home, work at home. Lots of people have never worked at home before. I have a very easy personal situation. Many people don't. You have young people with many roommates, young people that live alone, old people live alone, older parents, multiple family members in houses. You know, it kind of runs the gamut, right? And so I think as we now have pivoted and we've put a lot of information and we've really focused on this, is we've transitioned from business continuity to now, how do we stay uber connected with our broader communities? How do we check in with people every day? How do we make sure that our folks aren't feeling more isolated than they need to be? And so I could sit here and talk for quite a while about that, but it's a really important part of the puzzle for us right now.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Yeah. For the picture there. Bob, do you have any impressions that you want to share, what the impacts are on your organization?
Yeah, I've fortunately for us that we've done our business continuity planning, and we had set up the ability for all our developers, testers, supporters to be able to work from home and log in via VPN into our business systems. So for us, that's working very well. We've continued to provide the level of service that we traditionally have done. So from that point of view, we're okay. I think John is absolutely right in that we haven't really seen the impact that this will have. And you know, if the lockdown continues for more than 3 months, I can foresee us having a pretty deep recession, and you know, that will take time to come out of it. But you know, just think back to a century ago, the end of the First World War, the Spanish flu. You know, what happened in the 1920s? It was boomtown. Yeah. And so you know, I'm sure we will come out of this, and it will be positive.
Yeah. Well, we'll get back to that. You know, the impacts on the longer term, if we dare to sort of look further ahead. But let me check. Is Bert arrived in the meantime? Bert van der Meer?
I just joined.
Hi, Bert. Hi. I did introductions already. Maybe you can introduce yourself briefly and then talk a little bit about the impacts on your team globally.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and sorry that I'm joining late. I just came from a global team meeting call myself. So I lead the localization team in Google. The work my team does is mostly translation of first-party content, so Google created content, UIs, help centers, marketing material, legal documents, but we also do international testing, including in-country testing of localized products, and we do international user research as well. I'm just checking, does everyone hear me well? Is the quality good?
Yeah. We can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, great. Bandwidth can be an issue these days. I'll start with the impact on our organization. Because the team is set up globally, we actually started having real impact about 2 months ago, and I'll first start talking about the Googler impact. Already 2 months ago, certain offices were going into different levels of working from home or were closing down entirely, and there were travel restrictions. Googlers themselves are pretty well equipped to work from home ad hoc on one day or a few days in a row. But as we now start rolling this out, since 2 months ago in Asia, it's just been rolling westward, let's say over Europe now, where I think the epicenter is, and now in the US, we definitely noticed that working from home on the longer term is very different from one day at home. And so there is a loss in productivity, which is quite normal, especially because we're not working from home alone typically now. Everyone is working from home, often with kids, pets, roommates, spouses who are sometimes also working in the tech industry, or are taking care for sick family members. So we definitely see a high impact there. But at least technologically and access-wise and equipment-wise, it is possible. For those employees who are heavily impacted, we are rolling out company-wide policies with regard to caregiving and various types of leaves to cover that to the extent possible. So that's the impact on the Googlers. The impact on the vendors. Our vendor operations in terms of translation and the review vendor one has actually been limited because they often already work remotely, at least the actual linguists working on content. So the impact there has been rather limited. We did see real impact with vendors who work on site or who need access to physical material, for example, testers. Who need access to actual devices, which sometimes are not released, so they're pre-production devices. And for those vendors, security access is very tough. So that has definitely been a lot of work in the last 2 weeks. We are mostly business as usual by now. Some activities, however, are virtually impossible in the current circumstances. For example, international user research. Right now, it is not possible to organize in-person CUJ or interviews, walkthrough interviews with users, to go into country, to do focus groups, panels. All of that is totally impossible, also for the safety of the UX researchers, but also because the subjects, the users who are being interviewed right now, their behavior is totally different from what it would normally be, and it doesn't make sense to ask right now questions about like, hey, how are you using maps to get to a restaurant, or like right now that's top of mind, and behavior are very different. Sorry, what did you say?
No, I acknowledge what you said, but
yeah.
Is there any impact on the volume of business? Is the volumes continuing in the same levels, or is it even increasing now? Is there any change there?
Yeah, so the third thing I was going to talk about, and that is the urgent work requests. The overall volume is kind of similar, although obviously the teams we work with internally are equally impacted, and some of them have see a real impact on their roadmaps and their ability to get work done as well. Overall, we see business as usual running mostly at the same level. However, we see a very strong increase in urgent work requests. For example, when the company started moving away from call centers and phone support towards email and text or chat support, these kind of communications have to go out, and they have to go out fast. Google is also translating a lot of authoritative medical information about COVID-19, including for third parties. And so that, of course, has to go out fast, and also relies on medically skilled translators. So those are not necessarily easy to come by. So lots of the changes in support levels, urgent communications, butter bars, notifications at the top of web pages have created a very significant uptick uptick in urgent work.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Thank you, Bert, for that overview. I think, Andrew, there's so much interesting information being shared, but we have to move on to our next question. And Chris and Paco, I know you haven't responded to this question yet, but we'd like to get your opinions on the next question in particular. And here again, there's a poll. So for the audience, please check the questions on your screen and answer as quickly as possible. And I will start then again to read the answers. So just signal when they become visible. In the meantime, we'll start asking the panelists what your ideas are on this. You know, and we touched on that already briefly. John, for instance, said something about that. But do you have any thoughts already what this might do? This kind of shock wave that going through the world for the language industry in the medium and long term? Will we just return to business as usual? Will everything be the same after the dust settles? Or will there be, for instance, acceleration in innovation and automation, things that we've been thinking about, but we didn't really get to doing it? Will that now suddenly get priority? We're interested to hear your thoughts on that. So Chris, you're on the technology side, and you would welcome perhaps such a change. But what do you think? What do you expect?
Well, what we do see is across Microsoft is an increased interest in our communication products. I think that is true for everybody who produces communication products. In our case, that like Teams has seen a significant increase in usage, and as a result of that, the interest in having transcription and translation integrated into Teams, which I myself have been arguing for forever. So now there is some more reason to actually do that, because our customers demand that. What I believe what is not going to go away for a while is a reduction in travel and people traveling internationally, or at least they'll do that with somewhat more caution for a while.
Right.
I don't believe that by itself reduces the international communication or cross-language communication that we need to do. So in that sense, I do expect some somewhat increased interest in having communication tools, and I consider translation a communication tool, because we already use technology in order to do our basic conversation anyway. We might as well enhance that with tools that make that even better. I mean, personally, I'm somewhat worried about the long-term impact on the travel. Well, of course, the travel industry, as well as just the amount of travel that we are doing, or the amount of say physical contact with people who are far away normally. I mean, I miss that. I miss that personally. Technology-wise, I think it is it puts us in a position that can help the business.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Back to you, John, perhaps because you already alluded a little bit to sort of the medium or longer term view you have on what this crisis may mean to our industry. Do you want to elaborate a little bit further?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's multiple points here. Like my take is if we fast forward 12 or 24 months, I think what you'll see is a pretty rapid acceleration of some longer term trends. I think, on the language service provider space, I think you're going to see some changes. You'll see consolidation. I think some small folks will probably struggle a little bit to move forward in the new environment when the dust settles. I think you will see a move to more MT, probably more of a direct translator model. I think the really interesting thing is just, you know, it's just everybody's everyday life right now. In touching things in the post-COVID world, I think you'll see an acceleration of what already is the trend for smart devices and voice activation. And I think the language industry has already played a large part in voice activated devices and will continue to do so. I think that'll be a big growth area. I think e-learning will be a big growth area. So I think when we come out of it, it will reshape the industry, and I think it'll reshape and accelerate more need for self-serve and automation and technology. And I think there'll be, like everything else that comes with this, new opportunities. Some of the things that I think we've taken as a given in the past will go by the wayside, and I think there'll be like offshoots of new innovation that'll come. So, like, you know, it'll be messy, as these things always are. And you look back in 5 years and say, wow, that was a result of COVID and this innovation came. So I think that there are very challenging times ahead of us, particularly over the next couple of months, if this doesn't, you know, go away, which I can't imagine it will too quickly. And then, you know, and just, you know, on how we get back to work, that's another thing. Just as an aside, I had a long discussion. I live in the US, as I talked about earlier. I talked to my congresswoman in the US for a half an hour the other night, and had a long discussion with her about, you know, kind of where the government's position was and getting people back to work and safety, of course. And so I don't think they have a very clear-cut idea on the way forward either. But I think at the end of the day, the language business will be changed, and there will be, you know, like anything else, puts and takes.
Yeah. Thanks, John. And yeah, maybe it's Marco, you're still in the middle of the crisis, but have you been thinking about the future a little bit? Do you have any views on you know, sort of lasting changes in our industry?
No, I didn't have a lot of time to think about, but you know, Jaap, I'm an incredible optimist, and so I always think positive about the future. So what I'm seeing is that the crisis has released a great amount of ingenuity, and people are inventing new things. They need to do things in a more efficient way, more disintermediated way. Yeah. And since the market changed, they need to find new markets, and hopefully international markets. And because they can travel less, I think that a great translation service is a brilliant tool for helping these companies to grow. So I see the future to be positive.
Yeah. Always good, yeah. What did the audience think of this?
Yeah, likewise. So 60% of the audience thinks the change will be positive. So that's good to know that we have optimists in the audience.
We're all positive in this industry. Yeah, every crisis brings an opportunity, right? That's the way the Chinese write the word crisis. I've just learned. You know, with two characters, one means opportunity, one means danger. Yes, this is again, this is such an interesting webinar and so much ground to cover that we're running out of time. But I'd like to carry on and talk a little bit about the next question very briefly now. But we have another webinar under the same theme in times of Corona, so we can come back to that question and cover that more extensively. What can we as a language industry do? And there is a poll question, so again, please click on the possible answers there. But I'd like to switch directly to Daatse, who's now busy and managing the poll, and perhaps say a few words about the Taos initiative, Daatse, if you can.
Yes, so you might have seen already in communications from Taos that we have initiated a new project, what we call the Corona Crisis Corpus Project, where we invite everyone in the industry to contribute their data that could be used to build machine translation engines specifically for virus-related domain. As well, Taos, as a language data network, we were thinking, how could we help in solving the situation, we thought, well, we do have the data, many other companies do have data, so why not improve language technology that we have available to, do something for this cause. So, well, you can't see the slide now because we are showing the, oh yeah, no, so back to the slides. So just to illustrate you what we do with the corpus. So we started it with creating a corpus from our own data cloud repository that will be available in the next couple of days. And at the same time, as I mentioned, please, anybody who would like to contribute the data and make it available to the community, please contact us and we will make it possible.
Yeah. Thanks, Dot. And then I'd like to ask Paco, sorry, Paco, we haven't heard you speaking yet really much, but maybe you can talk a little bit about this translation group that has been created just last week.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. So this started last week. We were asking ourselves how, as machine translation researchers and doing a lot of work on low resource machine translation, how can we help? And from the past, we've learned that machine translation has been useful in situations where, in crisis, where there needs to be rapid access to information, or where help requests need to be translated for NGOs to act upon them. So we started asking ourselves, are we ready to be able to translate information for this crisis? And the answer was no and no. And can we do it as a community? Can we share resources? Can we find a way to collaborate together? So it's really an effort that just started between different partners from including Translators Without Borders, but also universities and large tech companies to get together, find a way to collaborate, to empower the community, basically to build tools for this purpose, to translate automatically crisis text, especially in very low resource languages, but also in high resource languages. And many people have joined the cause. Right now, we are looking at, for example, CMU just started crowdsourcing news articles and lexical terms from the community, so we can know what are the key terms to translate and build translation systems that do well on those articles. Yeah, so that's roughly an overview of where we're coming from and what we want to achieve.
Thanks, Paco. And of course, the project that we launched, it probably just happened around the same time last week. We're also connecting with this group. So there's close cooperation between the Taos Corona Crisis Corpus project and this group. So more on this in the next webinar. We will probably also be able to share more results and links to some of the data sets and corpora that can already be shared for everybody to improve their translation engines. Yes, Anna-Mai, maybe, of course, we were one of the first in the industry to postpone our conference, which was scheduled for March 10 and 11 in San Jose. Maybe you want to say a couple of words about that?
Sure, yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, so indeed, as Jaap was saying, we had our global content conference scheduled for the early March, and keeping an eye on the news, we decided to schedule it or postpone it until September. So as you can see here on the screen, we have now new dates confirmed in the same venue. We have already lots of confirmations from the speakers that they'll be able to join us in September as well. But indeed, as I think Chris, you were saying earlier, that traveling will change. People will probably not hop on a flight so easily as before. So we are also taking now some time to rethink and re-strategize our whole events agenda. But as Jaap was also saying, we will share some more details about this in the coming weeks, but you will see our new name already here on the slide, transforming our global content conference into the massively multilingual conference and expo. So more about that in the coming weeks.
Yeah, we're reviewing the plans with our board this coming week also to discuss what we will do with the planned Industry Leaders Forum in June in our head office in Amsterdam. That may have to become a virtual meeting as well. We'll decide probably after next week. Yes, I realize that we're already at the end of the hour, and I really apologize to some of you who would have been able to share so much more interesting insights and information, but we simply haven't had enough time to let you all speak about everything that was on your mind. So we're going to continue this conversation because we realize that everybody's sitting at home, likes to connect, is eager to hear more about other people's impressions about this crisis and where we're heading. So join us again on April 9. We'll invite also new speakers, maybe some of the same, who haven't been able to speak that much today in the call. So we'll send you an invitation soon. And I hope that we've received also quite a few questions through the chat board. This will not be missed. We'll follow up with you by email after this call. And of course, this webinar has been recorded, and the recording will also be shared, so you can share it with your colleagues and your teams if you like. Andrew, also my apologies to you. We haven't been able to ask all the questions we had in mind. Is there anything burning? Anything burning on your mind that you'd like to?
Well, no, I'm extremely excited by the reception, by the ideas coming out, by the response, and the fact that this is obviously an ongoing conversation. So let's pursue it. That's exactly what should be on the agenda.
Right, and there will be blog articles on our website that will point you to. We are interviewing more people to also share insights in writing on our website. Thank you very much, John, Bob, Marco, Paco, Chris, JP, and Bert for joining us today. And thanks to everybody in the world. And we wish you strength, and stay safe and stay healthy. And we'll speak to you soon again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Stay safe and healthy.